Go ahead, David.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry about that false start. You have tuned into the Rebel News live stream on this, a Monday, March 17th, 2025. Hey, folks, I'm David Menzies, and my co-host, well, let me tell you a bit about my co-host. Do you know, folks, today is St. Patrick's Day? And my co-host was going to wear green, except green is now a debased color thanks to, well, the Green Party and Elizabeth May. She is the she-devil with a sword. She is the Khaleesi of Northern Alberta. She is the sensational Sheila Gunn Reid. How you doing, you ungreened Sheila?
Do you know what? I love the color green. I do. But since I worked in front of a green screen for like 9 years before I put this wall behind me, I almost have no green clothes because I could never wear them. So I was going through my stuff and I'm like, I don't really have anything green. But apparently, like if you go on that, like what day is today, nationaltoday.com, they ranked St. Patrick's Day way down the list.
What?
I don't know if you can bring that up. It's nationaltoday.com. It's quite weird. If you go to the landing page, did they update it on me? No. Okay. If you go to the landing page when it's like what day is today? Olivia, can you bring that up? Sorry to put you on the spot. What day is today? It's March 7th. Go down.
Tomorrow appears to be Awkward Moments Day. I think I covered that off in the beginning.
Okay, so on my viewing of this, it goes National Act Happy Day, Benito Juarez Day, Campfire Girls Day, Doctor Patient Trust Day. I believe that was broken during COVID. Evacuation Day in Boston. This is my favorite. National Corned Beef and Cabbage Day. Why corned beef and cabbage? Is that an Irish cuisine? I believe so. Then we go down Ramon Magsaysay Day, some sort of Filipino politician. St. Gertrude of Neville Day, Sheikh Mujinda Rahman birthday, Welderly Day. Finally, we get to St. Patrick's Day. Olive Aiden's birthday, and then we get into the birthday. So the last thing they list is St. Patrick's Day, even though it's like one of the most like widely celebrated holidays in the world. There's parades all around the world because of it, and they don't. I guess the problem is you might accidentally have to explain that it's a Catholic holiday, that St. Patrick brought Christianity to the British Isles, and he was actually born in Scotland. People don't know that either, but anyway.
You know, that's amazing, Sheila, because that was where I would, base my thesis on this whole sainty business. But you mentioned there's a St. Gertrude that got higher billing. That's really weird. I mean, I'm kind of like that ending episode speech of Captain Kirk and Who Mourns for Adonis when he talked about the ancient Greeks and they gave us so much. And I think of the Irish, how they've given us so much, the potato and Lucky Charms and the Titanic.
Lucky Charms, yes. Well, famous cuisine, the Lucky Charms.
I guess they haven't given us all that much, really, but they're usually really nice people.
Conor McGregor. They gave us Conor McGregor, yes. And we'll sure get to that in a second.
Absolutely.
But let's tell everybody what we're doing today.
Please.
We just literally had a meeting like 8 minutes ago where I'm like, we got to stay on track. We got to get to everything. Then I take us on this big side hustle. Okay. We should tell everybody what we're doing. If you're watching us on Rumble, thank you for supporting a great free speech platform that believes in your human right to speak your mind. So on Rumble, you can support the work that we do out of the goodness of your heart, leaving us something called a Rumble rant. That's their paid chat if it's over the $5 US cutoff. we are obligating ourselves to address it on air. If it's under the $5 US cutoff, I can't guarantee that we'll get to it, but we'll do our very best, time permitting. Same rules apply on the very recently remonetized Rebel News YouTube page. So if you're watching us over there, you can send us a super chat. And I know some of you just prefer to watch us over there. It's just the system you're accustomed to. I get it. I sure do. So super chats, again, same rules, $5 US cutoff. Anything under that, we'll do our best to get to it. If you're watching the recorded version of the live show, this is past Sheila giving future viewers a little note here. If you want to leave us a chat, a paid chat to support our work, but you didn't catch the live show, that's okay, because YouTube has the option to leave a paid comment called a super thanks. So if you want to do that, we sure appreciate it, because as you know, we'll never take a penny from Prime Minister Mark Carney to support the work that we do here at Rebel News. God, that doesn't come off the tongue very well, does it?
No. It's going to take some getting used to. I'm almost at the point right now, Sheila. The more I delve into Mark Carney, I'm changing my tune about Justin Trudeau, which is to say, come back, all is forgiven. Because I think
no, not all is forgiven, but just come back. Take
Yeah,
a little
just
bit
come
more
back.
abuse before we can show you the door.
But let's get to Mark Carney indirectly. It's Pierre Poilievre talking about Trump and talking about the carbon tax, which, contrary to popular belief, folks, this is why I don't trust the mainstream media. The carbon tax has not gone away. It's very odd that Mark Carney, who is, draping himself in the Canadian flag, reimagined Captain Canuck, is against all things U.S., but apparently thinks that as the prime minister, he has the power to sign an executive order, which he does not. You cannot sign off the carbon tax away. It's got to be an act of parliament. But regardless, why don't we first, Sheila, throw to Mr. Poilievre on telling Donald Trump, well, basically, stop the chaos, stop the tariffs.
Before I begin, I want to tell the workers here that our hearts are with you. I know that this is a very difficult and stressful time. Some of you have already got layoff notices. Others are worried you might face them in the future. You're scared. You're stressed. You don't know what's going to happen. I want you to know that Canadians are with you. We will fight for your jobs, and we will make sure the supports are there in the event of layoff. We'll make sure that EI provides payment promptly to help you keep food on the table, and we will work to get you back into a paycheck as soon as possible. And I once again say to Donald Trump, why would you go after these people? These are great Canadian people. American workers, just like them, are going to lose jobs if this continuing trade war insanity goes on. There is no good reason to do this to these good people. Stop the tariffs, stop the chaos, let's solve this problem, and that will mean that workers on both sides of the border can get their lives back, and both the nations could be stronger, safer, and more secure. We will always be a sovereign, independent nation. We will never be the 51st state. We will always be proudly Canadian, and we will fight for the Canadian promise.
You know, Sheila, I think Mr. Poilievre is on point. This is
I think that's good.
Yeah, it's the front burner item. But bringing it back to Carney, let me ask you this. He gets sworn in as prime minister, and the first thing he does is bugger off to Europe. As we speak, he's meeting with King Charles. Sheila, does Mark Carney have a calendar? Is this the 21st century or the 19th century? What is he talking about there? I'm sorry, Your Grace, but we're going to have to increase the price of beaver pelts. This is crazy. Why isn't he at the White House basically delivering the message Mr. Poilievre just did?
Do you know what? We'll get to that in a little bit, because we have that lined up on the Mark Carney nonsense and some of Mark Carney's HR selections. Are set to inflame the Americans, most definitely. But we'll get to that in a little bit. And I think, like Poilievre is gunning to be the next prime minister of Canada, not the next governor of the 51st state. That's exactly the right choice to make, to expressed that messaging. And you'll note what a difference a Poilievre trip to a steel mill looks like versus a Carney one. Right. And I think it has a lot to do with the last time a Liberal wandered in a steel mill, at least anywhere near the yucky workers of a steel mill, they got told off. Do you remember that one guy telling off Trudeau in the parking lot of a steel mill? And basically he said, well, we're giving your company like $400 million. Isn't that enough for you? And he's like, you're taxing me to death. Stop. So Carney couldn't have that sort of public relations misstep, which is why when he visited also a heavily subsidized steel mill in Hamilton, he made sure that there was no mixing and mingling of him with the workers, or at least one that might be caught on camera.
You know, that's amazing. I wonder if that was the same steel mill in Hamilton, Sheila, that Lincoln and Jay and I went to last year, also for a Poilievre presser. Two things.
I think it was Algoma.
Algoma? No, then it would not be, because I think this one was Stelco. Two things stood out. One was the workers all over Poilievre, in a good way. And this is Hamilton, folks. This is NDP territory, but no, they know which direction they're going with the NDP. It's no longer about the lunch bucket brigade anymore. It's about climate action and this sort of nonsense. The other thing, Sheila, is that tons of media were there, and every single steelworker that decided to come up to the media area came up to talk to Lincoln Jay and I, said how much they admired the work Rebel News is doing. I kind of felt bad. I saw people with the Spectator, CBC, and they're being
Did you feel bad? I wouldn't feel bad for the CBC and the Hamilton Spectator.
No, but it was almost embarrassing.
To sleep on their bailout money. It's okay. They'll dry their eyes with all the tax dollars we sent them. It's okay.
Yeah, I'm sure they would frame it as Rebel News paid for plants at the steel mill to come over and give them accolades, but we don't do that, folks. You know that. So that just shows you where, you know, a traditionally left of center NDP kind of voter is going. They are coming to the Conservative Party.
Oh, that happened a long time ago. I don't understand why the blue collar unions in some parts of this country continue to vote left. I think that is changing, but it happened in Alberta a long time ago. Go ahead,
Sheila. You have to differentiate between the leadership
guys
of the unions, and the rank and file grunts, so to speak. And I say that with all due respect. You know, the guys actually doing the work, not the guy in
the makers,
downtown
not
Toronto.
The takers. Yeah, the makers, not the takers.
Exactly.
Poilievre called out the theater of Mark Carney's fake executive order. We don't do that here. They're called orders in council, and they have to go before the Governor General. But Mark Carney, he's been out of the country so long that maybe he doesn't understand how our parliamentary democracy works. And he, for a guy who's so anti-Trump, he sure appreciates the theater of Trump signing something for a photo op. Except when Trump signs something, it actually means something. Let's watch Poilievre pointing out what the media failed to do.
They brought in a carbon tax in this law. This law is still in place, even though Mr. Carney has signed a fake executive order to hide the tax for 35 or 40 days leading up to the election. It is still in place, and it applies across the board. The tax is scheduled to go up 300% over the next 5 years, and hiding it for a few weeks will not change that. Furthermore, the full carbon tax also applies to industries like those here at Iveco. Iveco makes hot-rolled steel wire and steel billets, and these taxes drive up the cost of the entire domestic steel industry. Mr. Carney has said that he wants to expand the industrial carbon tax beyond the already eye-watering increases the government has passed into law. He specifically singled out steel in an interview he did on CTV. He said that Canadians don't buy steel, they don't need steel, and therefore it won't do any harm to tax steel.
What even is steel?
Although he did admit that the tax would drive up the cost of an automobile by but by just $200. I don't think anybody believes that. Remember when the Liberals told us that the earlier carbon tax wouldn't cost you anything? We learned later that that was not true. Carney's proposed shadow carbon tax will be bigger than Trudeau's carbon tax. And it's ultimately a trick. Hide the tax before the election and then bring it back bigger than ever after the election. This was a bad idea before the Trump tariffs. But now that Trump is hitting Canadian industry with a massive tariff, Carney is saying that he will impose a massive carbon tax on Canadian businesses. The combination of Trump's tariffs and Carney's carbon taxes would be a disaster for the workers behind me. Workers would lose wages, consumers would pay more. Money and jobs would leave Canada, making us even more dependent on the Americans, just like Trump wants. It reminds us of Carney's decision to move his headquarters out of Canada to the U.S.
You know, Sheila, it's just amazing. I began by saying, does Carney think we're in the 19th century as opposed to the 21st century by meeting with the King of England? But now I'm thinking that Carney believes Canadians live in prehistoric times. He said
we're in
that
the Stone Age.
yeah, we don't. We're not going to be affected by steel prices going up. Last time I looked, the major component of my red rocket was steel, and but maybe Carney thinks Canadians get along like Fred Flintstone and Barney Rubble. You know, their cars are made out of stone and wood. You know,
Yeah.
because I don't. This is a staggering, ignorant thing to say. And why isn't the mainstream media on him like a fat kid in a candy store on that ridiculous comment?
Yeah, and Poilievre is right. Like, wouldn't you want to make the industries targeted by tariffs more economically viable? Wouldn't you remove the climate tariff if you could? Instead, they're actually adding one. Look at this goofy
Oh,
guy.
come on.
You know, this is so ridiculous. Look at me. Now pick it up and show it like Trump does. If you're going to completely emulate him, go all the way. This is just theater. He removed the carbon tax, the consumer carbon tax, but he didn't remove it, by the way. He's just hiding it by moving it upstream because they don't like you knowing it as a line item. They just want you to think, oh, it's just inflation, everything costs more. Well, there's a reason everything costs more, and it's because that carbon tax is still there. It's just upstream. So it's not a line item on your gas bill anymore. And it's not removed, by the way.
But wait a minute, Sheila, you mean to say that the industrial carbon tax, which is still a thing and is still going to go up exponentially, and it's going to be applied to farmers and truckers and warehouses and retail stores. Wait a minute, you're not suggesting they're going to pass along those costs to Canadians, are you? They would never do something like that, would they?
It's basic economics, and Carney thinks Canadians are stupid. Like, business owners understand. People who do grocery shopping understand that if it costs the trucker more to get it to you, if it costs the plant more to build it, that adds into the final cost of something. He actually thinks we're just stupid. We don't understand why things cost the way they do. That's what he thinks. I think it's quite insulting, actually.
Oh, I agree with you, Sheila, but there's two things why the Liberals cannot win with this pretend axe the carbon tax, the consumer one at least. One is, weren't we told for years? And remember, Carney's been advising the Justin Trudeau Liberals since 2020.
His messaging.
Pardon me?
His message. Oh, tell me it's not his messaging that was saying, oh, if you give us your money in the form of a carbon tax, we'll cycle it through the hands of 1,000 bureaucrats, do nothing to make it grow, and then give you back more at the end of the day.
Exactly. With the carbon tax rebate, the last one is going out next month. But beyond that, Sheila, when he announced this carbon tax, closure, which is not, at the Liberal Leadership Convention a week ago Sunday, all the cheering, and I went, wait a minute. You guys, you Liberals were telling us it wasn't about the money, it was about Mother Earth. We have to save the planet, right?
Right.
This
we should go hungry to save the planet.
You know, that 1.6% of global CO2 emissions Canada's responsible for. We have to eradicate that to net zero. So even though it'll be economically devastating, for the sake of planet Earth we had to do it. Where did that narrative go, Sheila?
I guess it vaporized with their polling data.
Yeah.
It left. The science changed when the polling did. We've got Stephen Guilbeault, who suddenly has become a proponent for removing the carbon tax in just a few short weeks. So he confirms that it's been reduced to zero, which is an important point because the carbon tax has not been eliminated. The carbon tax is still in effect. Right now, it's at zero, which means it could go back up to where it's supposed to be, according to the Liberals, if Mark Carney fares well in the next election, right? Like it's still on the books. The rate is at zero right now. Let's hear from Stephen Guilbeault, who is suddenly a climate change denier.
Prime Minister Carney can actually just get rid of the carbon tax like this.
Well, basically, following a decision by Cabinet, the price, the consumer price on pollution will be brought down to zero. So it's a regulatory measure to bring the price to zero.
So essentially, it's not a removal of it; it's just lowering the price of it.
It's bringing it to zero.
See? You're getting a carbon tax, friends.
Yep.
They just don't want it in effect when the Conservatives are trying to make it a carbon tax election.
Sheila, I'm having deja vu in terms of Mr. Guilbeault being truth challenged. You might recall last year, Lincoln Jay and I went out to Peterborough to catch Mr. Guilbeault doing a presser. And I call him like I see him. I give him kudos for A, taking my question, and B, walking and talking with me en route to his vehicle, which was really my motive. I wanted to see what this guy drove to Peterborough in, or was, he doesn't do his own driving, of course. He's too important for that. And lo and behold, Sheila, it was a Toyota RAV4 SUV. Now, I asked him, why aren't you driving an EV, right? And his first answer was, last weekend I took the train from Montreal to Quebec. Can you imagine? So I said, no, but in the here and now, Mr. Guilbeault, with all due respect, you got here by driving inside a Toyota RAV4. And he got out and he pointed to the decal on the bumper that said hybrid. He says, but it's a hybrid. But you know what, Sheila? I'm a car guy, so don't kid the kidders, as they say down on the Midway. I said to Mr. Guilbeault, but sir, it's not a plug-in hybrid. That is what qualifies for a green plate in Ontario. And then he just, feet, do your stuff. That was the end of the interview. So this smoke and mirrors, this shell game, keep your eye on the right one. It leaves a lot to be desired. Oh, there, super producer Olivia has the evidence.
Yeah.
So
all right.
Anyhow,
okay, let's I'm trying to keep us on track. I've got a video of Stephen Guilbeault from October. So not like a gazillion years ago, like 4.5 months, 5 months ago. Stephen Guilbeault on the carbon tax then, when it wasn't a campaign issue. So let's hear how quickly he flip-flopped on the issue.
If you're serious about climate change, if you're not serious about climate change, like Pierre Poilievre, then of course you don't want to do anything you don't want to put measures to fight climate change. And the planet and Canada can go to hell in a handbasket. He doesn't care. But if you're serious about fighting climate change, this is not the only way, but the best way. The best way of doing it. It should be the number one tool in your toolbox of fighting climate change.
It's the best way, he said. It's the best. So why are you getting rid of it? How hard? I want to know, Stephen, how hard did you fight to keep it? Or were you like, oh, dang, we're going to lose the next election. The Conservatives are making this a carbon tax election. We better take that away from them, that spear away from them. I think that he doesn't actually care about climate change either. I mean, we saw that he drives a Toyota RAV4, at least gets driven in a Toyota RAV4. He only cares about power and getting reelected and using the green scheme, the scam of climate change to control other people.
But Sheila, back to our original point, this is just kabuki theater for the
Of
cameras.
course it
We're
is.
getting
It'll be
rid of
back.
the, it's going to be back. It's going to
And
be
it's not
harsher
gone.
than
It's
ever.
up.
100%. Yeah, he's just saying that to follow the script Mark Carney has told his minions to pronounce. That's all. But
Of course.
and Sheila, you mentioned polls. Do you believe these polls? Because I'm
No.
telling you, Lady Menzoid is having conniptions and she's taking
No.
it out on me. And I'm telling her, don't believe it. These
I
are
saw one
false.
of these. No, I saw one of these polls put the Bloc Québécois at 1% in Alberta. So I'm like, give me a break. Give me a break that the Conservatives and the Liberals are neck and neck when you've got the Bloc Québécois at 1% in Alberta. Like, no, get over yourselves. Okay, I got to do a quick ad read.
Yes.
And then we'll get into Olivia Chow's hypocrisy. So I'll do an ad read. I'll read the chat. We'll hit a break and then we'll continue on if that's okay. Okay, so this is from Rumble, our friends at Rumble. It's a sponsorship that's incredibly important to the survival of Rumble itself, but also Rebel News, because when nobody would allow us to make money on the internet, Rumble did. So when Rumble first started in 2013, they built a platform for the small creator. They didn't censor or have biases. They were fair and treated all creators equally. No one thought platforms would censor political conversation or censor opinions on COVID, but they did. Facebook admitted they felt a pressure from the Biden and Harris administration. Same thing happened in Canada. If you were on the internet on Facebook and you were talking about COVID and just your personal experiences with COVID, and then all of a sudden you didn't have a Facebook page anymore, that was Health Canada. Now, Rumble didn't do any of this. They held the line. They're attacked daily for giving us at Rebel News a voice to talk to you. They're attacked in corporate media, attacked by governments like France. They are attacked from brand advertisers who refuse to work with them. Corporate America is fighting to remove speech, although the Trump effect is changing that quickly. Rumble is fighting to keep it. Rumble won't survive with brand advertisers. They don't get much of it. Watching our show on Rumble is the most they can ask from you, but if you really believe in this fight and if you have the means, one major way you can help Rumble survive is by joining Rumble Premium. Join the community that believes in the First Amendment and believes in our human right to free speech. Rumble's offering 10% off with the promo code STUDIO when you purchase an annual subscription. Go to rumble.com/premium. Use the code STUDIO. Like I said, if you have the means and believe in the cause, now's the time to join Rumble Premium. If you don't have the means and our pockets are getting picked harder than ever by the government, we're just happy if you watch us on Rumble. And then we've got a quick chat here from Janice H. Gives us $2. I think this is from YouTube. So this is the result of a recent YouTube remonetization, however long that's going to last. But it's from Janice, who says, thanks, Sheila and David. Okay, well, thank you, Janice.
Thank you,
Let's hit
Janice.
a Rebel ad break, and then we'll come right back with Olivia Chow being a total hypocrite.
Canadians know the national anthem. They stand in silence to remember those who died for this country. But not every Canadian knows their rights and freedoms. The Freedom Passport will change that. It looks and feels like a Canadian passport, but contains the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms in a portable, easy-to-read format. The Freedom Passport. Order one for yourself and for all the freedom lovers that you love at freedompassport.ca.
Why should you join Canada's National Firearms Association? We currently have one of the most aggressively anti-firearm governments in our nation's history, promoting fear and placing blame like never before. Our rights, freedoms, culture, and heritage, it's all on the line. But we are fighting back. And there is strength in numbers. We work within the law to change the law, to defend competitors, hunters, collectors, and other law-abiding firearms owners. We can get through this. We've done it before, and we'll do it again, if you are with us. Canada's National Firearms Association. Freedom, safety, responsibility.
All right, let's get into Olivia Chow. She is failing. I was going to say failed, but she continues to fail. Mayor of Toronto. You might know her from the times when she's partying at festivals, scantily clad, even though she's, I would say, geriatric, while Hamas runs amok on the streets of Toronto. And now she says that US companies are no longer able to bid on City of Toronto contracts. Well, I guess that's good news for SNC-Lavalin or whatever they're calling themselves these days.
Yeah.
What does she
That
have
is
on her
worth
neck?
under $8.8 million, and goods and service under $353,000. US-based suppliers will no longer be able to bid on city contracts. Businesses
US-based.
who have been most impacted by US tariff must be supported. The workers will be hurt. Today, I'm announcing an industrial property tax deferral program to help businesses who needs it most. Excuse me. The program will allow the affected property owners to defer. That is worth.
Wow. By the way, what is that on her neck, Sheila? Don't ask me how I know this, but the last time I saw fabric like that, it was at the Zanzibar in downtown Toronto. Anyway, here's the thing. I want to know what the dollar amount is, Sheila. For example, at that presser, she talked right off the hop. They're going to buy that's the Toronto Fire Services. They have to buy a couple of dozen new pumper trucks. They're going to buy the Canadian-made fire trucks. The question is, how much does that cost as a premium over what I suppose was the original tender for the American pumper trucks? Because they are spending not their own money, but our tax money. You know, this is what is concerning. Listen, I'm all about Canadian businesses succeeding, and I love the idea of made in Canada, but is that going to be at a premium? Because I can tell you this, Sheila, that means the City of Toronto residents, you're in for yet another perhaps double-digit tax increase next year.
That is if you can afford the steel, to do these things, thanks to Mark Carney's tariffs. I just want to point out the hypocrisy here. Has Olivia Chow ever banned Chinese companies, state-owned companies, from doing business in China? Absolutely, or in Toronto? Absolutely not. In fact, Invest Ontario, which is a crown corporation of the Ontario government, has an entire office dedicated to getting Chinese businesses to invest in Ontario. And this is, it's got a mandate letter from the provincial government to do this work. It's from the Minister of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade to get Chinese entities to invest in Ontario, even after all we know about China and how sinister they are. This is what's happening in Ontario, but they see the Americans as the bad guys, worse than China now.
Sheila, let's compare apples and apples when it comes to Ontario. Last week, as you know, China applied more tariffs against Canadian-made products. So I asked Premier Doug Ford, does that mean you're going to yank the Chinese products off the shelves of the Liquor Control Board stores, like you did earlier this month with Kentucky bourbons and California wines and assorted other products? And by the way, I put that out on X and I got flamed by certain people. Oh yeah, lots of Chinese liquor at LCBO stores. Yeah, actually there is. There are Chinese liquor products. And beyond this tariff tiff that we're into, Sheila, why are we stocking Chinese liquor, Chinese beer, the trinkets and trash that are on the shelves, such as bottle openers, which are made in China anyways? I mean, shouldn't we have had an anti-Chinese regime buying policy going back to COVID? You know, the world endured trillions with a T, folks, of economic damage. Millions of people died. All the evidence is pointing to the Wuhan Virology Institute, not the wet market and some bad broth of bat soup. So where possible, we shouldn't be buying from China at all. So I want to hear from Ontario's biggest cherry cheesecake eating enthusiast. If you pull off the Kentucky bourbon, why not the Chinese beer?
Yeah. And ask a Western Canadian canola producer right now how they feel about China. 100% tariffs on canola. Why? Because Justin Trudeau tariffed Chinese EVs to save his heavily subsidized EV battery and otherwise automobile manufacturers in Quebec and Ontario.
Yep.
I sort of posted on X before I jumped on the stream here. It's real easy to be Team Canada when you've got the federal government, all the political parties fighting to save your jobs. I was going to say doing everything they can, but they're not doing everything they can, as in just take down the rhetoric a little bit. They're not willing to do that, but otherwise willing to do everything they can to make sure that your jobs are protected, while Western Canadian workers and farmers we're expected to sacrifice ours.
Of course you are, because the West doesn't vote Liberal, Sheila.
Right. Nothing is to lose here.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, let's just to stay on time, let's bump ahead to Mark Carney. As you pointed out a little bit earlier, Mark Carney, I think, pointing out his priorities and in a swipe at the Trump administration, which, I mean, these guys continue to be petty about the Trump administration, but they will crush our economy if they don't stop this BS. And anyways, Carney decided to go to Europe as his first tour of duty, go home to Europe, I guess. And this is him remarking that Canada is the most European of non-European. No, actually, I would say we're very close to the Americans, but that just grosses these people out.
Oh, I don't know, Sheila. I think we are very European when it comes to, mass migration, bringing people in who hate Western values. Yeah. Yeah.
Spelling too.
Exactly. So if that is the benchmark, we're pretty much an EU country.
I think that would be genocidally progressive, actually. Whatever.
We both stand for sovereignty and security, demonstrated by our unwavering support for Ukraine.
Macron?
Under your leadership. With you, Mr. President, I want to ensure that France and the whole of Europe works enthusiastically with Canada, the most European of non-European countries, determined like you to maintain the most positive possible relations with the United States. Canada is a reliable, trustworthy, and strong partner of France, which shares our values and lives them through action during this age of economic and geopolitical crises.
Okay, so if we're all about trade deals with Europe, Sheila, and I really mean this, I really wish one of the trained seals in the mainstream media who can get access to Prime Minister Carney would ask this. Your predecessor, Justin Trudeau, last year told some European countries, such as Germany and Greece, as well as an Asian country, Japan, there was no business case for selling about $1 trillion of liquefied natural gas. Mr. Carney, what is your position on that? Because right now, it seems that given his supposed about face on the carbon tax and his trip to Europe to I don't know. I think, Sheila, the ostensible policy reason is to get more trade from European allies because of what's happening in the U.S. right now. Isn't that a fair and valid question? And really, Sheila, I don't even know how we'd answer that question.
How about this? Why are you going to Europe and proclaiming that Canada is European in the middle of a trade war with the Americans? How about that? Just let's not complicate the question. What are you doing in Europe when you should be in Washington?
Yep.
I feel like that's a really a question we all should be asking. And to say, oh, we're very European. Who? Montrealers? Quebec City residents? What about the rest of us? here in Alberta who feel more culturally aligned. I'm not saying that people want to be American, although there is a very healthy portion of the population who do. But even just to say that, like there's a huge part of this country that feels more culturally compatible with Americans than Macron.
Well, Sheila, I don't speak French, but I even wonder if Quebecers have that tie anymore. I've been told if there's a Made in Quebec movie that is screened in France, they have to put subtitles on it.
Yeah, I feel
French
the same way about
subtitles.
I feel the same way about anything made in Newfoundland. So, it's sort of the same. We all have our own dialects, don't we?
You know what? That's not even a joke. There was a tragedy. It was an American transport plane that, when it refueled in Newfoundland going back south to the States, had a crash. And I was watching CNN, and they were speaking to a truck driver that was an eyewitness to the crash, and his English was so heavily accented that they were indeed, Sheila, running English subtitles on the screen, but the guy was speaking English.
You know what? I think maybe I'm best suited to understand people from Newfoundland. I don't know if they're okay with us calling them Newfies or not, but just given the sheer volume of them that live in Alberta and work in our oil industry, in the grocery store in Fort Saskatchewan, there's like an entire Atlantic food section where you can buy your salt cod and your big log of bologna and your weird crush version, like pineapple crush and stuff. They have their own flavors. Birch bark, what is that? Or birch beer? I don't know. Anyway,
it's kind of like a root beer. I spent 2 years there. How about Screech? Is that on the shelves? I think they took that off the LCBO. Are we in a trade tiff with Newfoundland, the province?
Is Screech something you can buy, or is it something you just make at home?
No, you can buy it. I'm sure that's a trademark
I don't know.
name.
I don't drink hard liquor, so I haven't wandered over that. I had a incident with
our
birthday
Sheila,
cake
folks.
vodka.
She's having her mint julep as she's out.
No, I had an incident with some like $12 2.6 of birthday cake vodka one time, and I just never went back. Okay, it wasn't good. Let's get into further to Mark Carney refusing to take down the heat in the trade dispute with the Americans. First he goes to Europe instead of going to Washington, which is a real clear signal that he is not willing to back down on any of this stuff to save Canadian jobs. But he then hired Catherine McKenna's house husband, Scott Gilmore, of all people, to be his foreign defense and security policy advisor. He's joining Carney's office. So this is the Canadian government, and not like what Carney did to avoid ethics disclosures. He joined as an advisor to the leader of the Liberal Party, which would help him advise Trudeau on things that would then enrich Brookfield Asset Management without having to make ethics disclosures, because, I don't work for the Canadian government. I work for the Liberal Party. Now, I think Scott Gilmore has joined in an official capacity in the Prime Minister's office. Now, the reason I say this is crazy is because, Scott Gilmore, you'll know, he once famously said that people's grandpas who went off to war in Europe to fight the Nazis, like stormed the beaches of D-Day in what was often a suicide mission. He thought Antifa was cut from the same cloth as our grandpas. Now he's Carney's defense and security advisor, like advising on issues of national defense, like military related stuff. I forget his tweet. Like he sent a tweet of it was D-Day, and it was like one of those the beaches, like they were headed towards the beach, and he was like, "This is the alt left going to fight the alt right," as if those young men fighting in defense of the world considered themselves akin to the alt left, which is Antifa and the Hamas marchers. Like, just madness. But this is the guy who's advising on military issues now.
I know how much it bothered him to be called the house husband, and
I'm glad. I'll continue to say it. I'm just happy he got a job out of the house.
But you know what? I got to tell you, Catherine McKenna gave a press conference. It was back in 2017. Efren and I attended it. To her credit, she took her question, but I'll never forget her shot, her passive aggressiveness.
This is it. The alt-left violently coming at the alt-right circa 1944. I'm sure all those young men from Alberta consider them the alt-left, Scott Gilmore.
Yeah, and also Antifa, Sheila, it's a contraction of anti-fascist, but they use all the tools of fascists. Yeah, yeah. They're violent. They, not only against property, but against people. So their real name should be FA. Does Scott Gilmore realize that we were fighting the fascists some 80 years ago in Europe? Because it's a complete disconnect. But I was going to say, I got to get this shot in because I've waited, I'm doing the math, 8 years. 2017, Catherine McKenna says to me after I asked the question, this is how she begins her nonsensical answer, Sheila. Oh, Rebel News, you're still around? Where are you, honey? I mean,
we're still around and you're not, sister.
And that was in 2017. Yeah. But, what is it, Sheila, about the surname Gilmore? Scott Gilmore, Rachel Gilmore. I mean, well, then again, there is Dougie Gilmore, but he spells his name differently. So I don't know. Is there something in that ancestral line that is a bit of a defect, maybe?
No, let's not do that to all the Gilmores. I'm sure that it's to their great chagrin that they share a last name with some of these people, but he is an anti-Trump lunatic. Yeah. Scott Gilmore. If you just go to his X account and just put search by Trump, and he is like proposing, this is one of his tweets from the last time Trump was in power. I'm proposing Western allies use a Magnitsky Act against Trump. This sounds absurd. Okay, you should have just stopped there. But this is all absurd. Chancellor Merkel just gave a speech acknowledging Europe can no longer rely on America to help in its defense. This is staggering. And then he said Trump has adopted a Russian style of governance by what? Shrinking the size and scope of government instead of making Russia makes everything government or government lateral, right? Yeah. He's shrinking the size and scope of government. He's shrinking the influence of his own office. Anyways, he goes on to say, Trump is somehow some amalgam of both Hitler and Putin and possibly Stalin. This is the crazy guy who's advising the Prime Minister of Canada on foreign policy. So where do you think this is going to go? Where do you think this is going to go?
That is so rich when he references Chancellor Merkel. This is the same woman who started, shutting down nuclear plants in Germany so that more than 70% of Germany's energy needs is dependent on, drum roll please, Russia.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. 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 I mean, and if Mark Carney wasn't advising Justin Trudeau to neglect or obstruct is more like the liquefied natural gas sector here in Canada, we could have offset some of the riches that Putin is using from Gazprom to wage war in Ukraine. Yep. But instead, they'd rather just block Canadian oil and gas and then give Zelensky money out the other side. Money we don't have, by the way.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Let's go into Carney and the controversy around Brookfield Asset Management, and not just Brookfield, because he says he's no longer the chair there. Okay, but I'm sure he has a lot of holdings. And now that he's prime minister, we should know what those are. Yes. And I'm also curious how his personal wealth ballooned while he was whispering in Justin Trudeau's ear about what he should do with the Canadian economy. So Michael Barrett, who I think he should be the next procurement minister, he's got some questions. So let's listen.
Mark Carney, you've just become prime minister, and Canadians have one simple question. What are you hiding? You told Canadians you had no connection to Brookfield Asset Management, the massive investment firm with billions invested in sectors your government now controls. But a bombshell National Post report exposes the truth. Brookfield and your own team, quote, declined to clarify if the new prime minister still possesses any financial interest in Brookfield, end quote. So, were you lying then, or are you lying now? Here's what we know. You have already lied once about your involvement in moving the headquarters of Brookfield to the United States. You're entitled to carried interest payments, potentially worth tens of millions of dollars from Brookfield's investment funds. That's not a passive investment. That's a direct financial stake in the deals you made while you were at Brookfield. And now, as Prime Minister, you have the power to shape policies that could make those investments even more valuable. That's a massive conflict of interest. You claim to have placed your assets in a blind trust, but let's be real. A blind trust doesn't erase the fact that you know these assets exist.
Right.
You know their value, and you know exactly which policies could impact their profitability. And unlike stocks, these assets can't just be sold off. Canadians shouldn't have to wonder if their prime minister is making decisions for them or for his own wallet. You say you have nothing to hide, so why are you hiding? Here's what you should tell Canadians. Do you still have financial interests in Brookfield and its funds? Are you holding carried interest, stock options, or deferred compensation? Will you recuse yourself from decisions that could benefit Brookfield? Canadians deserve transparency, and they deserve a government that works for them, not for corporate elites and backroom insiders.
All right, I just moved him up to finance minister in my fantasy football game board over here. I've got Larry Brock at AG. Michael Barrett has moved from procurement to finance because of how he was talking about deferred payments. And I've got Rachel Dancho at public safety, Raquel Dancho at public safety. And at environment, I have Conservative MP Blaine Calkins. Why? Because he was a park ranger. And so he actually is in the environment or was in the environment. Now I have to find somebody for procurement again. Anyways, go on.
Inspired pick. But you know what? He got
Thank
one
you.
thing wrong, when he said Brookfield Asset Management controls billions in assets. It's actually over $1 trillion, Sheila. I'm reminded about that great line in the movie Superman Returns where Lois Lane talks about Lex Luthor's plan. It's going to end up killing millions. And he gets really angry and he pounds the table and he says, millions, it's billions. Billions. Again, the press underestimates Lex Luthor. So, that is the size of that company, $1 trillion plus in asset management. And I want to reiterate this. That was the biggest of the big lies he was caught in, or one of the earliest, I should say, Sheila, in January when he said, oh, but you know what? I wasn't with the board when the move went through, but he was the chairman of the board when the vote was taken to move the Toronto headquarters to New York City, October 31st. Hey, happy Halloween. That is a trick or treat. So again, he lied about the lie. And I guess where I'm going with this, Sheila, is like, how can we trust him about anything? And the fact that who's his chief of staff right now? Marco Mendicino, the guy who had his farewell party at a venue not far from our headquarters, which has a ginormous Pinocchio statue. This is the guy that's lied about the biggest one, I think, Sheila, is police services telling the government to do the crackdown on the Trucker Freedom Convoy in 2022. Which police service? Ottawa? OPP, RCMP. Hello. Yeah. So an Uber liar advising an up-and-coming superstar liar. Brilliant.
Can somebody let me know in the comments? His name escapes me right now, and I paid such close attention to the Green Slush Fund hearings. The older Conservative MP, he got removed from the House of Commons. Not Michael Barrett. Michael Barrett also got thrown out. I think it was on the same day. But I need to put him at procurement on my board because I have a whiteboard going and I just don't want to forget. I like him. I think you should go. I want Stephen Ellis over at Health too. So anyways, the board is growing and hopefully it manifests. Okay, let's keep going.
Wait a minute. What ministry would you like, Sheila?
Oh, I would love to be an associate minister at environment, and then I would do away with the entire parks ministry. I don't think the government should be telling you what parts of nature you should use. Just
Holy
get out of there.
Doge, Batman.
I would. All right, let's keep going. We've got this quick note from the NDP. I'm just going to brush over it because we need to get to everything that's on the board today. NDP says Mark Carney's in it for billionaires. Okay, so call the election jerks. Like, the NDP,
Well,
Mark Carney is in it for billionaires, not working people. And then he promises to cut taxes for billionaires, not working people.
Sheila, there is a big scuttlebutt right now that the election will indeed be called, perhaps on Sunday.
I'll believe it when I see it.
Well, I don't know. That there's a lot of chatter, and the reason I would think the Liberals and Carney would want to go to the polls ASAP is that they believe these ludicrous popularity polls that showed them within 1%, whereas just a few months ago it was a lopsided landslide for the Conservatives. I still think it's going to be a Conservative majority government, but if they believe their own hype, yeah, well, go for it. Let's go. Let's have that election.
We'll see. I don't believe it.
You don't think it's going to be called? No.
Who can trust the NDP these days?
Oh, no, you can't trust them. I think Sellout Singh has already said he won't bring down the government. I can't remember the reason. Does the reason even matter? Carney said last week the election will be
You think
called.
Carney's going to call it?
Well,
I
he
don't
did
know.
say sometime before November last week. So-
Yeah, November 2026. Okay.
Oh,
All
that
right.
theory again. Eh?
Yeah.
Maybe.
I've got a quick ad read because we have to pay the bills here, and then we'll get into, I believe,
Conor McGregor.
Conor McGregor stuff. Yeah. Okay, so this one is from 1775coffee.com. Week coffee is for the week. And at Rumble, week has never been part of the mission. No fillers, no fraud, and no settling for mediocrity, just like 1775 coffee. It's single origin, single farm, hand-picked, specially grade coffee that stands for quality, free speech, and calling out BS when it matters. Forget stale, mass-produced beans, roasted just enough to hide the flaws. Dark roast hits like a Trump tariff. Medium roast keeps it bold with the bitterness, and Vitality Mushroom Blend is real energy and lasting focus with no synthetic garbage. For K-Cup pods, whole bean, or fresh ground coffee, go to 1775coffee.com. Use code STUDIO for 15% off and start your morning with coffee that stands for something. Oh, and every dollar spent enters you to win a Cybertruck and $30,000 cash. All right, that's 1775coffee.com. Okay, let's get into the Conor McGregor stuff.
Oh, and
Since
by the
it
way,
is
Sheila, if I may,
St.
if I
Patrick's
had
Day.
the coin, I would buy a Cybertruck because I think it is absolutely despicable what's happening, again, with the so-called Antifa types south of the border, torching Tesla dealerships. There was a photo from a week ago, Sheila, of a Cybertruck in Manhattan, and somebody spray painted a swastika on it. As much as I'm not with the EV hype, I would, to send a message the opposite way, I would buy a Tesla product. And I got to tell you, I love that Cybertruck. To me, it's like if the Honda Ridgeline was exposed to gamma rays, like Bruce Banner becoming the Hulk and turning into this thing. And I know the design is in your face, but you know what, Sheila? I know you're kind of a car girl yourself. Isn't it nice to see manufacturers taking a risk on design instead of making everything look like a homogenized jelly bean on wheels? So I'm going to look into that contest. I want to win that Cybertruck. Is it valid in Canada, that contest, by the way, Sheila?
I'm not sure, but for me,
Always read the fine print.
I love the politics of a Cybertruck. I do. Don't get me wrong. But for me, as a purist, I'm a square body truck kind of girl. I don't like a curve on my vehicle.
Yep.
And that Honda Ridgeline looks like the illegitimate child of, that Cybertruck looks like the illegitimate child of a Honda Ridgeline and a Pontiac Aztec. Like, I just I can't take it. It's not nice to look at. I don't like it.
You know, if General Motors stayed with the concept car of the Pontiac Aztec, and if they had listened to the Six Figures and Consultant advice, which they didn't, the Aztec would have been a pretty special vehicle. But, you know, who are we to tell General Motors what to do?
No, they make a mistake, just get a bailout. It's fine.
Right.
It's Rick Perkins. Thank you, Dave, behind the scenes. Rick Perkins, he's on procurement. He's going on the board.
Oh,
Rick Perkins is going to procurement. I got to find a place for Michelle Rumpel.
Sheila, if I were a Conservative MP, where would I be in this beautiful cabinet?
Heritage.
How dare you?
We would be allowed to say whatever we wanted on the internet. That's why. Okay, let's move ahead to Conor McGregor because we're over the top of the hour.
Yes.
Go ahead, David. You can lead.
Oh, well, it is Conor McGregor speaking out against mass migration in Ireland. Folks, I welcome you to go to our website and look at Ezra Levent's wonderful posts right from Ireland. Something sinister is happening there. There's no other way to explain it. A lot of young men from, I'll call it as I see it, culturally incompatible countries are being dumped into Ireland. And I mean, it's fitting at St. Patrick's Day. I've only been to Ireland once. It was mostly the Belfast area back in 2001. I love Ireland. I love the Irish people. And I think, Sheila, what's happening to that country right now is scandalous. And I can't connect the dots unless, of course, the plan is to de-Irish Ireland.
I think the simplest answer is the most accurate answer. I don't think that there's some sort of complicated answer. It is to change the demographics of Ireland. Especially like when you are dumping more people into a town from culturally incompatible regions of the world, then the people who actually live in there, these Irish towns overnight are suddenly not Irish anymore.
Correct.
And I think it is to just make these places no longer Irish. They think that we're in a post-national state world, if you believe the progressive left, and to have your own distinct cultural identity is not for us in the Western world anymore. And when you listen to people like Justin Trudeau, and for that matter, the greater liberal movement, the Western world has been a bunch of colonizers and genocidaires. And for them, they think it is our time to be colonized.
So why don't we throw to Mr. McGregor at the White House and get his opinions right from the horse's mouth?
I'm here to raise the issues that people of Ireland face, and it'll be music to the people of Ireland's ears, because never on the main stage has the issues the people of Ireland face been spoke. Our government has long since abandoned the voices of the people of Ireland, and it's high time that America is made aware of what is going on in Ireland. What is going on in Ireland is a travesty. Our government is the government of zero action with zero accountability. Our money is being spent on overseas issues that has nothing to do with the Irish people. The illegal immigration racket is running ravage on the country. There are rural towns in Ireland that have been overrun in one swoop, that have become a minority in one swoop. So issues need to be addressed. And the 40 million Irish Americans, as I said, need to hear this, because if not, there will be no place to come home and visit.
Wow, he's got my vote if I were an Irishman. Sheila, the same thing is happening here. I mean, I filled in last year for Ezra for one of his shows, and my monologue was about the contract with official state multiculturalism has been broken. We go back to Justin Trudeau's father. This is when official multiculturalism was brought in 1971, if I recall. And there was an unspoken agreement, Sheila, and it was you can come from anywhere in the world and you can pursue the Canadian dream, and you can take advantage of our Canadian welfare programs, whether it's state-funded Medicaid or welfare, unemployment insurance, you name it. But here's what we ask of you. Obey the law. Don't be a troublemaker. Don't import age-old hatreds into our dominion. And as we've seen for the last 16 months, every weekend in cities across Canada, the pro-Hamas types chanting for genocide, and nothing's done. they're not Canadian. They hate Canada. They hate Western values. That's what's happening in Ireland right now. So kudos for Conor McGregor for speaking out.
Yeah, I think it is a sad state of affairs when the chief cultural activist and government accountability advocate for Ireland is an MMA fighter who spent most of his career in the United States. Like, that says a lot about the state of affairs inside of Ireland right now, that a millionaire, although at the same time, it's like America has Trump now. So yeah. Like a billionaire real estate mogul from New York and Florida has become the president of the United States twice. I guess at some level, it shouldn't shock me that a millionaire MMA fighter who spent the bulk of his career in America has become the chief advocate for cultural preservation in beautiful Ireland. What's wrong with the politicians there right now? Are they so colonized by this globalist nonsense that they think that there's a problem with Ireland being Irish?
Well, I'm no expert on Irish politics, Sheila, but I can tell you Conor McGregor would make a great representative. And as you said, he has spent so many years in mixed martial arts. But, I can tell you just by watching that clip, he has all his marbles.
Sure he does.
In a sport that can really be a brain shaker for participants. So good on him. And we'll have to follow what his political ambitions are, given that I guess going back to the ring is not an option for him right now.
I'm kind of excited when we get the different kinds of people involved in politics. I mean, look what Donald Trump did to politics in the United States.
Oh, yeah.
You don't have to be a career politician or a lawyer from a well-connected lobby firm to get into politics anymore. Like, you can just be somebody who's had it up to here with the nonsense, and who has a platform, which I'm all for it. Enough of the barriers to entering politics. Somebody has to speak up for the forgotten people. Trump did that. He spoke up for the Rust Belt, Middle America, flyover country, as they call it in the United States.
Imagine
and Conor McGregor's doing the same.
Sheila, isn't that the most galling thing about how the Democrats look at most of the population of the U.S.?
Flyover.
And that is meant as a dismissive thing. It's where we're flying over en route from New York to say San Francisco or Los Angeles.
New York to LA. Yeah, they fly over that part. So who cares?
Flyover country. How shameful.
You know what? Quite literally looking down on them.
Yeah, that's true.
The builders and the growers of the world. We've got a chat, and then I think we'll wrap it up.
All right.
Commander Kim gives us $5. On behalf of the United States, I'm notifying David Menzies that he is receiving the substantial bill for all the cleanup of pew-pews at the bottom of the Great Lakes and surrounding bodies of water.
Oh, no.
This is...
Is that in reference...
talking about this.
Oh,
It's in reference to David's appearance on the live stream last week.
Oh, I thought it was in reference to our Wasaga Beach report, where there were certain people not using
poo-poos. Poo-poos. Yes, instead of pew-pews. Yes. Got it.
Oh, yeah. We'll keep an eye on both of those, I suppose.
You're going to keep an eye on that one? You are? But are you
very briefly?
Yeah.
Well, thank you for the donation, nevertheless. Much appreciated. Yes. Well, as Sheila intimated, folks, that is it. We've gone over. Sheila is a busy bee today. We will be back, Sheila and I, on Friday. Tomorrow, you can see the sensational Sheila teaming up with, can I call her the lovely Lise? Because I met her. I met her back in December. And I really did kind of fall in love. I got to tell you, I really love that gal. So Lise from Saskatchewan, I believe, will be teaming up with Sheila tomorrow. Enjoy yourselves. As always, until we meet again, folks, stay safe and stay sane.
Today, I'm announcing that a common sense, Canada First Conservative government will repeal the entire carbon tax, including the federal backstop that requires provinces impose industrial taxes. There will be no taxes on consumers, no taxes on Canadian industries. Instead, Provinces will continue to have the freedom to address this issue how they like, but there will be no federal obligation to impose the tax. We will also axe the tax on steel, aluminum, natural gas, food production, concrete, and other industries. Instead of taxes, we will use technology. Technology, not taxes, is the best way to fight climate change and protect our environment. While the Liberals tax businesses who use energy, Conservatives will cut taxes and boost incentives for those who bring down emissions. Carrot, not stick. We will expand eligibility for the clean technology and clean manufacturing investment tax credits.